Morning, everyone. Welcome to the Elbert County BOCC. Today is April 25th. It's 9 o'clock. If we could, Dallas, do roll, please.
Commissioner Thayer.
Here.
Commissioner Richardson.
Here.
Commissioner Wilcox.
Here. This time, please be Roger.
I just want to remind everybody that National Day of Prayer is a week from tomorrow at 7 o'clock at the fairgrounds. With that, let's go to the Lord in prayer. Almighty Father, thank you so very much for the rain we've received. Thank you for the county and the country that we live in. Lord, may we be citizens that will point to you in your righteousness, that we may be a land of laws and fairness, but most of all mercy. These things we ask in Christ's name. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Agenda. Do we have any changes or anything on the agenda?
Mr. Chair, I move that we approve the agenda as presented.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. On the consent agenda.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, on to elected officials, department heads and staff reports. I believe we have a few.
We do. Janet Maloney is here to talk to you today about Gene Day.
Hi, really quick, I just,
Up there.
oh. See, I already messed it
We'll just keep coming back.
up. Okay, so I've never stood up here before. My name is Janet Maloney. I work for the Elbert County Sheriff's Office. I'm the victim's advocate. Do I have to say my address? I live in Elbert County too. Okay, so I just wanted to let everyone know that it's Denim Day. It's Sexual Violence Awareness Day, and you'll see a handful of county employees wearing jeans today with stickers. And it came about that a girl in Italy in 1997 so she was a victim, and the judge over there said her jeans were too tight, so she must have been helping the suspect get her jeans off, so there was no way that she could have been sexually assaulted by this guy. So the women of the parliament then took immediate action and started wearing jeans, and that's where Denim Day came around. So I just wanted to say thank you to all the county employee who has jeans on and is wearing the sticker for awareness.
Do you have 3 stickers?
I do. I have some extra.
I think it's kind of unfair. Wear jeans.
Oh, here you go. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Jen, thank you. Anything else?
Nothing else other than. Oh, sure.
I just wanted to bring you up to speed. We're dying. Bring you up to speed on some events that are happening in the motor vehicle department. The state is closing us down on August 1st and 2nd for the rollout of our new software system. We'll be pushing that out through various means on social media, website. Department of Revenue is even going to have a push to get through news media and that sort of thing to let people know that those days the office will be closed. But it's going to be an inconvenience for the public, but there's nothing we can do about it. When the Department of Revenue shuts off the computer, we're stuck. Also, we'll also be pushing out for the month of July. There's mandatory training for that new software system, and so we'll be shorthanded just about the entire month of July while the various ladies go to the trainings. And so we'll push that as well, and we'll just ask for patience and understanding from the public and do the best we can, but we'll work real hard at getting the word out on that.
Thanks, Dallas. Anything else, sir?
I don't believe so.
Okay, on to open public comment. Now, to remind folks, open public comment is for those comments that are unrelated to items under discussion or action, because you'll also have the opportunity to comment on those at that time. So, sir, you.
My name is Ron Bush, 5315 County Road 142, Elizabeth. Good morning, Commissioners. I had sent you an email on the 16th of April, and I also copied Chief Stack and Sheriff Happ on the burn ordinance. And as a relatively new resident of Elbert County, going on 2 years, 40 years in Colorado, but 2 years in Elbert County. I was concerned about the burn ordinance. I read it thoroughly. It was adopted about almost 12 years ago now. And so I thought that two things overall, and I don't want to drag you through the details of what was in the email, because you have it, but essentially there's 3 points that I wanted to make by coming here this morning. The first is that I felt that it was overcomplicated. We've got 3 levels of restrictions, and most other counties on the Front Range have 1 to 2. Sheriff Hepp echoed that concern also in his response. And by the way, I was very pleased to see both the sheriff and TJ Step, the chief, Elizabeth, to chime in on the email string. And it sounds like there's already things going on, which I was very pleased about. So, like I say, that was encouraging. So in addition to the fact that, an ordinance that's 12 years old, particularly in light of recent history here along the Front Range, we've had some really serious fires, that it was time for a refresh to go over, to make that over again. So that was the second part of my note. I listed a half a dozen things that seemed pretty obvious to me, and like I said in my note, I'm not an expert, but maybe common sense isn't so common, and by updating the ordinance, and then of course, in addition to updating it, then we have to educate the public too, because that's probably the hard part of this whole thing. Like I said, I was pleased to see that things might already be in progress, so that I think is going in the right direction. The other thing is, I don't know what the process is, but if there is an opportunity to participate or review or whatever, I would certainly be interested, because you can tell that this is a subject that has my attention. And then the final thing in my note was that we put something in the ordinance that, I timed out? Okay, yeah, just another 30 seconds. The last thing in my note was that we put something in the ordinance that forces a review. I put in there annually, that may be too often. But my point was that there's so much going on that this is not top of mind, but if we got an annual or every couple year reminder to review it, not that you have to do anything, it's just that you have to consciously make a decision that we're not going to do anything, as opposed to just letting it go on for year after year. So, that was the net.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Just 1 second. Sir, just in the question of how to participate, the clerk and recorder can add you to what we call the sunshine list. So you'll be notified of agendas for meetings, but generally when we adopt anything or take action on an ordinance or anything like that, we will have it for discussion for at least 1 meeting prior to final adoption. If it's overly complex, it may be on several meetings for discussion or go to a workshop. But signing up for the sunshine list, you'd be informed of the cost.
Okay. Is that something that can happen automatically, or do I need to?
There's a form. If I could get your email address after the meeting, if you're going to stay, we can get that to you.
Okay, thanks.
Susan Schick, 4122 down West Road, Elizabeth. Not exactly in the same vein, but in terms of forcing reviews of things. After the last BOCC meeting I attended, which was 2 weeks ago, I was hoping that we would get a little more detailed update on what happened with our software here that precluded anything being loaded up, the documents and stuff. And I didn't feel we got a very good update on what went on. It could be that there was just not a lot of information at that time. So in the future, I think it would be great to have, when we have large issues like that, if we could get a more technical update. And in this case, from our IT director, I think would have been great. And maybe we can still get that in the future. And so following that, I don't want to say this to embarrass anybody, but I checked on performance appraisals for county employees. And in particular, I asked for our IT director's performance appraisals for the last 5 years. And it turns out she has not had one since 2014. I don't know if that's, this was something I looked into with our previous set of commissioners, and I pointed it out. I think that's really problematic for a lot of reasons, particularly for the employee, and I think it makes everybody vulnerable not to have that happen. And so I just wondered if there was something that we get from our HR, if you guys get from your HR department when these performance ratings, come due, because I really don't think it's fair to the employees not to have performance ratings. They ought to have goals, achievable goals, and they should be measured and marked, and they should know where they stand. So I would appreciate it if somebody could look into that. Thank you.
Commissioners, just Under Sheriff McCoy, I live in Oakland County. Just speaking about his ordinance, I just wanted to let you know that we are working on the ordinance with Jared right now and on the programs. I just wanted to give him an update so he's aware. Okay.
I knew there was some work going on, but just wasn't sure what, because I had heard, thank you.
We're working with them on it. We agree with the number of programs, because we're 1, 2, 3, and they're 0, 1, 2. So is El Paso, and Arapahoe doesn't use, they just say you're on a burn ban, you're not on a burn ban. So I just wanted to give you an update. We did receive that information, I am working on it right now.
Thank you. So, you got the email or
something? The sheriff assigned me to that, so I'm working with Karen right now on it, right, as we speak. Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, on to discussion items. First one on the list, right-of-way franchise agreements. Clark?
Thank you, Commissioners. Right-of-way franchise agreements, I think, is a little too narrow as far as the actual topic that we are working on. I've been working with the county engineer as well as road and bridge, departments, looking at essentially the right-of-ways for Elbert County. We do have something that we've developed as far as a revocable permit, which assists that particular item, which will be provided to the commissioners in short order and for review by the public, is really going to assist with utility relocation. So when we're doing maintenance or construction in those sort of zones, it would require some assistance or cooperation from the various utilities. They're going to be sharing the right-of-ways, basically controlled by the county. And so that's going to be important moving forward as we do have more construction, more maintenance, those sorts of things in those particular areas. But in addition to the revocable permit that's on the table, we are also looking into the franchise agreement, which is the title for paragraph 1 in discussion items today, to see if there's any revenue recovery capability from those utilities based on use of those right-of-ways. And so that has traditionally been something that other counties have looked at, obviously with people cutting the cord with cable companies and that sort of thing is not as prevalent, but still something that we need to look into to see if we can capitalize on anything there for potential revenue creation or recovery for Elbert County. So we should have updates moving forward to our next meeting on that.
Do we have any public comment? All right. Thanks, Mark. Next one on the agenda, the update on TANF policies, HHS.
Commissioners, I'm going to provide a brief update on the TANF policies. Jerry Spear, the Director of Health and Human Services, is currently in the process of redrafting those TANF policies, basically to bring them up to speed with kind of our new format and our new look. It's a little bit of an extensive process for her to get that done. So she's still in the process of working that. We're just kind of providing an update on where she's at. So in the future, you should be seeing future updates to the TANF policy.
So it'll stay on the agenda.
It's going to stay on the agenda, and we'll just continue to provide update on the progress on it.
Okay. Comment? Public comment? Next one, draft records retention policy.
So, commissioners, I guess I'm gonna come up here. So I don't want to talk too much. Good afternoon, commissioners. I'm not Sam, so I'm not going to talk from over there. So, Justin Boston, the Director of Administration, and we are working on trying to understand what the county situation is with our records retention program. So currently, at the state archive, there are requirements for records retention. So the county does a good job of managing their records. Each elected has a specific schedule of requirements that they have to follow to meet their records retention schedule. So if those electeds have chosen to adopt what the state has provided as a records retention schedule, they can do that. They follow that, and that's the large majority of our electeds have already done that. So they're following a schedule that is dictated at the state level rather than creating their own. Beyond that, our internal staff, there was a resolution presented in 2014 that talked to a way forward for cleaning up the records retention in Elbert County. I will say, just on kind of what I've seen, there's still work to be done. So in an effort to move this process forward for our internal staff and departments, the policy is being drafted, and that's what is up for your review. That is simply a draft. It was to get the initial ideas out there, and then we'll work with every department and elected to make sure that that conforms to what we need it to say. I think it's very apparent that there are issues within that draft. We understand that, and I welcome the comments from whether it be an elected department or an elected office or an internal department. Provide comment, and we'll make changes to that records retention policy, which is not the schedule. I just want to make sure that that's clearly delineated. This is just a policy on what we're going to do, not how we're going to do it. Each department will then create their own schedule that will then be certified or signed off by the state of what we can destroy and order and retain. So hopefully that kind of brings a little bit more understanding on where we're at with this. The policy is just a very high level. We need to do more in the county for cleaning up our records retention. We have a lot of old records, and that's fine. That's the reason for that is because we don't have a schedule to destroy those records. So we keep them perpetually. Once we create a schedule and it's approved, then we can start to migrate those those records to digital formats and or destroy. That kind of help?
Yeah.
Okay, so we are not at a point where it's a final draft. This is a draft document we're still working on with the departments and elected offices.
Task in progress.
Task in progress, that is very true.
Yeah, I know, last year when I got here and we kind of started down the policy route, took quite a bit of time just trying to dig through everything we could find in the county that looked like policy. The archiving resolution that's referenced here was one of them. If I recall, that one said that we were going to do something and be complete within, I think, 6 months. And it just seemed like it was a resolution that was passed and then forgotten about. So, and then it, I think, really came to light when we were moving offices up to the Samuel Albert building, just how much stuff had accumulated. So I do think it's a good start for a first draft. The things I kind of penciled over, I'll go in detail with just where we're putting, you know, there are things that have definite just workload and budgetary impacts. And I think we need to just kind of sit down with everybody affected to make sure that we understand what those are and set some rational timelines. I know the clerk there's been a fee associated for several years with every document that's recorded that allows digitizing, and I know that's a long-range process to get back to. And our ideal is to get back to digital format with everything, but we probably need to put some reasonable time gate on that, whether it's 50% by 2020 or just some forcing function so we know what the budget against. But I mean, I think it's a good start, and I know the original resolution talked kind of the direction we were going, which was good, but as a resolution, it's just a number and a date that's hard to find, so bringing some of the content of that into this policy and something that's easily indexable, easily found, easily updatable is a good start. Thank you.
Great.
Yeah. No, that's fine. I like jobs in progress. Or progressive in jobs, which way to put it.
I have a few things that I'd like to just make some changes and then reply with you. But the one thing I would like to state, though, is something kind of along the lines of what Chris mentioned, was we have a previous resolution. What tends to happen, it seems like a lot of the resolutions, we lose track of over time. And that's why I think defining things in policy ends up to be more lasting, more open, and something can be followed in the future. I see that working better for us personally, and I'm glad to see this is kind of turning into a policy, because I don't know, resolutions, like I said, we seem to be lost, and we encounter that in a number of areas, land issues, everything else. So if it's converted to policy, always in the handbook, that's always in front of you, you've got something to reference, and it's there in front of you all the time. I do like that. So, those are my comments. And thank you for the work.
Great. We'll continue to develop.
I just kind of second what you just said there, is that particularly in land use, we have resolutions and things like that keep getting adopted, and sometimes they're internally at conflict with each other, and so proper overall documentation may help us solve some of those conflicting issues.
All right. Thank you. Public comment.
Arlene Groves, 33-300 Ridge Road. Good morning, Commissioners. Thank you, Justin, for that update. It piques my curiosity. Will we get information on what I would call the deficiencies or the areas of concern? As you said that there were areas that need improvement, maybe even going back to like the 2014 or something like that. I mean, is it one particular department? Is it just across the board where we're close to the state statute, or if that's kind of possible.
We'll have to do some research before we can.
Yeah.
I was just saying the bottom line, without a retention policy, records are stored forever, so it's not so much being out of compliance, it's just doing what's rational. If you have an adopted instruction policy, you have to keep everything, which we do, but then you lose track of it over time.
When we were moving, this was kind of an aside story, when we were moving over to town of Albertville, we cleaned out a safe, and we found newspapers in there from 1914.
Sounds fun.
So the whole point is that what Chris just said is, you know, if we don't have a cleansing process from time to time, it's, we have some artifacts.
Which we did turn over to the museum.
Yes, we did.
Yeah. All right. Any other comment? On to number 4, update on county owned vehicles. I believe we have 2, 4.
Morning, Commissioners, Rory Hale, Director of Public Works, Ethan Meeks, lead members here as well, if there's any additional questions. And this may have changed slightly since the original submittal on April 11th. I know that we've taken a vehicle out of service, replaced it with another vehicle, put it back in the pool, which was the building inspectors, correct? Okay. So at this point, there are 61 passenger and light duty vehicles in the county fleet pool. These include vehicles used in road and bridge, the building department, faculties, maintenance, HHS, the coroner, OEM, the assessor, and the pool fleet. Half of these, and it's kind of been this way for the last couple of years, are surplus sheriff's office vehicles. Right now, there are, and this, again, this number may be off by 1, but based upon the staff summary that was presented, there's 39 trucks which are in road and bridge. It says one SUV building department, that's actually a truck now, and that vehicle or that Jeep has been transferred over to pool vehicles. Another truck for building department, 3 trucks for faculties maintenance, 1 truck HHS, 3 SUVs for HHS, 1 for OEM, 2 for the assessor's office, 1 truck for the coroner's office, 3 cars, 5 SUVs, and 1 truck for pool vehicles. On occasion, the treasurer and the clerk's office, once in a blue moon, may use these vehicles, and it may be a couple times a year at the most. So primarily they're available for everybody's. So commissioners can use those, and the manager uses those. And that's all I have. If you have any questions.
Commissioners, Under Sheriff McCoy, Over County Sheriff's Office. As of right now, we have 21 patrol vehicles that we use. We have 9 investigations. Those include especially undercover cars. We have 6 detentions, 2 victim advocates, and we have, especially, we have a Camaro and a Ford F-350 that we use to pull our command posts. The Camaro was donated to us for $1. We have Humvees that are military owned. We have snowmobile trailers. We have a Sydney trailer, SIDNE. That's for our electric car, which was donated by the citizens of Elbert County. Well, not citizens, but by businesses of Elbert County that gave us $21,000 for this vehicle. Thank you for those small businesses that stepped up late for that. We have trailers, snowmobiles, snowcat. We use the snowcat
to, as some people say, why do we need a snowcat? You can ask some of the people that we saved on Highway 86 that was stranded with their kids, and we were able to bring them to the sheriff's office. Without that snowcat, we would never got that family, and they could have died because of the weather. So again, that snowcat was very important to us. We have Kubota RTBs, which was donated by the military. What else? We have golf carts. Again, we use those for the stampede to get the elderly around that we transport back and forth. So that's, and we have LMTVs that we use for wildlife fires that we have hooked up that we can help the fire department with wildland fires. So that's all we have, and again, we don't have a surplus of them. I wish we had a couple extra for when our cars break down, because when they break down, we're kind of up the creek. So that's what we have right now. Any questions?
We may call you back after public comment.
Thank you for your time.
Commissioners, I do have one more point, if I may. It's important to note, between 2016 and roughly March of this year, there's been 12 passenger vehicles that have been sold out of these surplus vehicles. We finally got to the point, now that we've got a fleet manager, that we're in a rotation. So if we have vehicles that are sitting, they're not getting used, they need to be sold. Between the vehicles that we sold and surplus equipment, in that time frame, and that includes the sheriff's office vehicles as well as all the pool vehicles and road and bridge, we put over $125,000 back into the general fund. So that's a big plus.
So, Rory, when you're up here, I guess maybe the question there is, I know the question of take-home vehicles comes up now and then. I know you've got some of your folks that do have take-home vehicles so they can respond to emergencies or get fuel up to.
Not all, but most of the grader operators take the vehicle home simply because of the cost and the expense that there is of loading that equipment back and forth from the shop.
And you're also talking their grader.
Right. They carry fuel in the trucks, they carry tools and blades. All of the foremen take vehicles home. They're considered, along with myself, on call 24/7. Primarily, it's emergency responses. Wintertime snow events, flooding events, wildfires. And I don't know if a lot of the folks in the county realize that Elbert County Road and Bridge assists with wildfire fighting throughout the county. We also have our maintenance. One of our mechanics takes a vehicle home. Are we having him take a service truck home?
Yeah.
Okay, so we're taking one of the service trucks home. Also our sign guys. We may get a call from the SO at 2 o'clock in the morning with a down stop sign. We've got to get that put back up.
Commissioners, I want to thank Road and Bridge for all the help they give us for the wildland fires. They're amazing. Rory, Monty, Ethan, all of them that put their lives on the lines for these wildlife fires, because they're right in the midst of it. Thank you for your service, and we really appreciate it at the Sheriff's Office. We do have take-home cards, and it's cost-effective for us. And the reason it's cost-effective for us is because with that wildland fire off the Forest Oaks, if they had to respond in their personal vehicles, because we called for an all-out call-out because of the fire to save lives and preserve property. If they had to come to the office, they would have had to unload their vehicles, their personal vehicles, try to find a truck, go get the keys, and time-wise, it doesn't help us in a fire like that or a major crime scene. We use them for SWAT. They respond to SWAT calls when we have a barricaded subject or we have a shooting. Just the other night when we had that officers involved in the tasing, we were able to call people out and they were able to respond from home. When they respond to the county line, they're in service. They don't have to come to the office. And I work for the agency where I had a take-home card with them also, but the ones that didn't have take-home cards,
they'd be an hour and a half to get out of that office. That's an hour and a half that they're not on the road protecting our citizens. So before they come in, if we have a transport, we send them to a transport. So we have a lieutenant that comes from Castle Rock. He's able to get people from Douglas County. He's able to go to Weld County. We have a person that lives in El Paso. He's able to pick up in El Paso, go down to the Canyon City and pick up inmates. So it, cost effective wise, it tremendous to us to have take-home cars. So we do use take-home cars, but they're on call 24/7. I get called at 2 in the morning, and I'm out on the road. So again, our officers respond. They're on 24/7, and they never complain. When we call them, they're in service. If we have an incident that happens at the jail, they have their car. They can respond to the hospital to watch that inmate because if we're shorthanded in jail, and they need to get back. So, any questions?
Because balance is lack of personnel.
Like I said, just time-wise, they're in service, they're working, they could be coming up from the northwest corner, they could be coming from the east where the calls are dropped, and we've had that where, like, there's a call there, he's coming in from the east, and he handled it.
How often is it that you have every patrol officer available out in the field?
For that fire?
Well, at any time, just,
Well, it depends if they're on the days off, but once we call them, they go home, they grab their vehicles and they come. So they're available unless they've been drinking, and of course we won't have them respond. I mean, that's their thing. You haven't had anything to drink, right? And they're like, no, it's good. And they're in. For the Forest the Forest Ridge Fire, we had everybody. They all responded. Nobody said, well, it's my day off, I'm not gonna come in. They responded. So it's a good program that we have. And again, it saves the county money by having them in service right when they hit the road.
How often do you utilize the specialty equipment vehicles? Is it just occasionally, or is it quite regularly?
We use a lot. I mean, the city vehicle we use at every event. We take it to the schools for homecoming, for prom, and we teach the kids about distracted driving. We use it for to give away scholarships to kids. Last year we gave away two $500 scholarships with the city vehicle. We use the Humvees for parades. We use the Armor Humvee for the lady up off I-70 where they believed she had a weapon. She wasn't coming out of the car, and they shot up the car, and they still couldn't move on the car. But we brought our armored vehicle up, and we were able to move the armored vehicle up to check inside the car, and then we were able to move our guys up safely. So when we got hurt, we used them on SWAT calls. We used it a month ago on 3 SWAT hits. So we use it a lot. We use the parade Hummer for Veterans Day. We use it for all parades, and we take it for community events. Castle Rock calls us and asks us for our LMTVs for their events. So we work with the surrounding agencies also with special vehicles because they have a Touch a Truck Day in Castle Rock, and we take our LMTV there, and it goes over well. I mean, we have 500-600 kids that just come to just our vehicle, and the race car. We use that all the time. We use it up at Bandimere Race a Cop, and again we spent $1 for it. And I forgot to give them $1, so they wouldn't know that when I left that I stuck them on $1. So everything's donated on that vehicle. The wrap was donated. Anything that needs repair is donated by Sun Valley Electric. We have it stored with Sun Valley Electric right now, so it doesn't get the wear and tear of the weather out in our parking lot. So they store it at their facility, and any work done on it is paid for. We have a radio system in it that Wayland Electronics and AppTech put all the lights, all the equipment in for free. The radio itself was donated by Car Toys. Kubota donated the money for the seats that are in it. So the citizens of Elbert County, well, you spend all this money. Well, it's not true. They really need to call the sheriff's office or call me and I'll let them know about what was donated. Everything in that car is donated. The only thing we pay for is gas.
Most of the emergency response specialty vehicles are all.
They're all used for SWAT.
Or
Yes,
SWAT or-
and owned by the military.
Through grants and through,
3 grants,
government programs. Correct?
yes. So,
Okay. Your SWAT team deployments, how often do you guys, yeah, you know the numbers, and I'm probably, just how often we could deploy the SWAT team?
well, we're deploying them today, but I can't tell you where. So. If they come here, let's all put our hands up and, so they'll deploy today. We deploy at least once, twice, 3 times a month.
Okay.
Because, again, through investigations, we use it just for our safety. And I know people like, well, why are you doing military stuff? You know, if I save one of my officers' life today and I don't have to put a flag over his body on a scene, they're worth it to me. And if they sit in my parking lot and I don't use them, but the day I need them, if it saves one life, if it saves the life of a citizen, it's worthwhile. And I apply to any citizen on that point. That's why we have these vehicles, is to protect them and to protect my officers, because my officers are going to go home. I'm not going to go home and go to their wife's house and say he passed away today. I refuse to do that. Any questions? Thank you.
Is there any public comment?
Susan Schick, 4122 Downwest Drive, Elizabeth. I'd like to thank the staff and the undersheriff and Rory for putting this information together. I think it really helps a lot. I still have some questions, so I'm wondering if you guys would be available afterwards to go over some questions I have. Because, you know, a couple of weeks ago, maybe a month ago, I reported the numbers I came up with, and the grand totals do add up, as I expected they would. However, I still, I have questions about what constitutes a SWAT vehicle primarily versus what is a patrol vehicle, those kinds of things. So when I see that there are 36 vehicles for, this is in the Sheriff's Department, 36 for admin, patrol investigations and detentions, and then another 22 for SWAT, for specialty vehicles, which include SWAT, snow ops and off-road. I just had some questions there. And the necessity, because when I look at, one thing I commented last time was that I think you have to look at these numbers in light of some other things, like how many employees do you have? And in the Sheriff's Department, as I count, I think they fluctuate between, and I could be wrong, between about 17 and 20 patrol officers. And so the number of vehicles looks high to me when I look at how many patrol vehicles we may have and other vehicles. And so those are my concerns. Thanks.
While you're coming up, Troy, the other one that occurred to me is I know you also provide vehicles for posse members that serve warrant or not warrants.
Exactly. So these specialty vehicles include golf carts. So again, we use them for stampede. The Humvees are used for wildlife and some are for SWAT. The patrol vehicles are 21 patrol vehicles. The investigation is nine vehicles. Detentions is 6 and victim advocate is 2. So we also use our patrol vehicles for SWAT. So we'll take some of these Humvees and use them. And again, some are used for, they're all donated by the military. So they're owned by the military. Like I said, you're talking about numbers that they include trailers.
Yeah.
So all this stuff that I gave you, this 30-some specialty vehicle, they include the snowmobiles, they include trailers, they include ATVs that we use for search and rescue when we, if we're looking for somebody or looking for a criminal, we have ATVs that we're able to use. So those are part of our specialty vehicles. They're not all SWAT. They sit in our parking lot until they need, kind of like the snowmobiles. We don't use them until they are needed, but they're part of our our special use. It's not 39 armored vehicle lined up in our back parking lot. It's some Humvees, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 Humvees. That's what we have. When I say specialty, it includes trailers and mobile command posts and ATVs and snowmobiles. It's not, you don't drive up in snowmobiles on the swamp lawn like today. So they're not all used for SWAT. We use cars also for SWAT, for with high risk rock wall. We use armored vehicles to protect ourselves.
Charlie, if we could.
Yeah, I'll get it to you afterwards and we can discuss what the specialties are. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Let me make a quick comment. When I came into this job, that was one of the biggest issues with the vehicles in this county and how they were being used and everything else. And this was prior to these guys getting here, so I did something kind of unique. I actually went to the sheriff and took a day and went and literally went through every vehicle. And at first I had him show me, and these are the questions I asked: how many cars, vehicles. I asked for make, model, condition, use, assigned to, everything. And I went through everything specifically, and I went through every vehicle he had. And I looked at every one and I asked how we got them. So I did the research and found, here's what I found: the use of vehicles. There was one specifically for the sheriff's office they used for patrol, and he mentioned them almost all of them. Patrol, victims advocate, judicial, jail, staff, specialty, undercover, posse. So all these vehicles were being used. And then I got to looking at some of them. I asked about the mileage for a reason. Because a lot of these vehicles we're looking at, I think they're Dodge Chargers. You had some Dodge Chargers sitting over there. Okay, you have some vehicles that we did not mention that were seized, that we're using for undercover. So I looked at, let me go back to the Dodge Chargers. So I looked at these Dodge Chargers. They've got some of them had somewhere in the vicinity of 130 to 170,000 miles. Okay? Now, my knowledge of these vehicles, I wouldn't even put my wife in that car. Here's the reason. Those Chargers, first you look at them, they're sitting on the ground. Why? Because they've got 130,000 to 150,000 miles on dirt roads. They've got nothing left underneath them. And they're sitting, and so I'm glad we're really kind of starting to weed out these old vehicles that truly have no use, because I was surprised they were still on an inventory, and I was hoping we weren't using them. So I see a number of those, and I don't know the numbers specifically, but I had a spreadsheet, and I went down and I marked each one specifically because I wanted to know. And I found that a good percentage of them really needed to be sent to the shredder, sent to the crusher. Okay, so that was the first thing I found. The next thing, I went to how many vehicles we received by grants or projects, government projects, and I found that pretty much all of the specialty vehicles you had were received through grant programs, through government offerings. Okay, there's government contracts, we did them in Aurora. Okay, and we got a lot of these vehicles truly for nothing. Now we had to maintain them, yes, but these vehicles that I found that I think there were 4 that we received, and we used them. And I asked how often they were deployed, and I was surprised at how often we used them, because that's going to take me to another comment here in just a minute. So the other thing I found, how many vehicles we had seized, and we were able to use these vehicles as undercover vehicles. That's something I believe you mentioned, but I found that we used them quite frequently. And these were all vehicles that were sitting back there. Now, some of these are a bunch of junk, okay? And I think we still have some over there. So I'm kind of counting, trying to see how many vehicles we can eliminate, because they truly should be on the road. So when I was going through this, I started to go through that whole process. So the next question I had was patrol size and staffing levels. And I found that the vehicles that I thought that I really would put a patrol officer in, I thought we had just enough to cover the patrol. But then my question was, do we have any reserve? Well, at that time, we had very few. I think we had 2. And they were cars that I don't know if I would classify as reserve. Okay, so when I looked at that, and then I asked about the numbers, your shift, if you had different shifts, so you had an overlap of vehicles. That is not the case, like we did, like where I'm from in the city of Aurora, where we have about 1,000 officers, and you have, 400 vehicles, and you overlap using them. We can't do that here. We don't have that capability. Because of the question you answered about how many times you're actually deploying all your officers. Okay, so then I got to the take-home vehicles, and I asked specifically about take-home vehicles and how often they're used, and what are the reasons and what are the justifications. And you hit on most of them. One, emergency response. That's a critical one. And I will tell you, living on County Road 21, I've heard, and I won't give the name, an individual leave his house in the middle of the night, taking off, hear the sirens go, responding from that vicinity, from that house, and that is an acceptable process. And I think that improves the service to these citizens. The next thing I went through was we forget about essential personnel, and this goes to your part too. We have essential personnel in this county, and they are called in, and we have called them in for fires, we call them in for emergency scenarios, we call them in for a number of things. These personnel are considered essential, and they are. They can receive take-home vehicles, and they are afforded that, and it's not a luxury, because when you're called in at 2 in the morning, it is not a luxury. So, everything that was, he provided every justification for every vehicle he had. It took a day, but I ended up going around and finding out specifically because that was a huge question at the time. The other thing I wanted to mention is you talked about deploying your SWAT team. This is what was kind of surprising. I took your SWAT team deployment and the population in this county and compared it to the city of Aurora, the SWAT team deployment, and the population in Aurora, and the numbers were astounding as to how often we deploy our SWAT team. And I was surprised. It really surprised me. So we use those vehicles, we use those teams, and we run more calls. Our incident load, in proportion to the size of our county as compared to city departments, I'm surprised at our run. I truly am. And that all kind of relates back to the vehicles, the deployment of personnel, and these specialty vehicles. I truly believe, and what I came away with, we're using every piece of equipment we have to its fullest extent. And then the other thing, and then I'll quit talking. And then the other thing I realized that really got me, at that time, you were having your personnel actually trade the equipment out on the vehicles. Trade your communication equipment, switch it out in the cars. And I'm sitting there thinking, how are you doing that? And I know now we use a company and we should. But I didn't realize at that time those rigs, and we do that in road and bridge too. We don't send them out a lot of that stuff. We trade this equipment out, but it's our personnel. I can tell you if something like that happened in the city of Aurora, I'd have the union on my doorstep. So, with that, I have done so much research on vehicles. I had all the numbers. I didn't bring them today, and I probably talked too long. So, that's my comment on vehicles and application in the sheriff's. So, sorry. Thank you. Please.
Marlene Gross again. I like it that we have a snow cap because I don't care if it saves 1 or a million people. I think that's fabulous, and I think we have a unique county in that we do have some extreme weathers and some extreme conditions. So I'm good with the specialty vehicles. I applaud any of the departments that are going after grants and donations to get items, whether it be golf carts or Humvees. So those are all wonderful things. I apologize, I don't know what that Sydney or whatever that word is that's referred to. Maybe that could be a little bit clarified for
It's a drunk
citizens.
driving.
I thought so, but I was like, I didn't quite understand it, and I just thought I'd clarify that, because maybe I'm not the only one that doesn't know that. I think that having a policy, so maybe this is in Justin's area, for when vehicles are retired, whether they be sheriff's office or road and bridge, is very important. I think also, as a citizen, I would be curious to know if each of those departments, maybe even more specifically road and bridge, if they felt like they had adequate vehicles, because just because you have, X number of whatever, is that really what you need, or, do those vehicles need to retire and you need to replace them with something more appropriate? So to me, it isn't just the number of what each of those departments have, it's kind of like, is that the right number for all of those? One question, when we talk about take-home vehicles, I think that's fine too, especially for road and bridge, for heaven's sakes, that grader isn't going to go up and down the road. But also for the sheriff's department, you have them with take-home